Good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. I'm excited to get started again today. It's a quasi good day out there. We'll see how that works for us. I'm excited to talk about today's training and a 60-minute plan for getting started every week on SAM, or to move forward on SAM. And I'll talk more about that in one second. But this is a culmination. If you've been with me all week, Monday through Thursday, I'd been doing a lot of training on deep dive into SAM, because FPDS is gone, and that's what a lot of us used to use for award data or expiring contracts, recompete, strategic thinking, right? Or trying to find the opportunities that are for us. Well, that's all in SAM. And I was walking through the depths of how to do it, right? Showing you it, trying to give you introductions to the 3 tiers of going into SAM. And so today I want to push forward on, let me turn off some of my captions here, but today I want to push forward on how to really move forward in SAM every single week. So you're spending, let's say, 60 minutes a week, and you have a strategic plan of advancing your business through SAM every week. You don't just let it happen to you. And so that's what we're going to be talking about, right? A federal contracting weekly action plan. Most contractors and small businesses, they tend to just look when they're feeling pressure, or more of a reactive approach to anything within SAM, right? They're feeling pressure because they're not, they don't have opportunities, they don't have wins. And one of the most classic ways for those of us who've been around a while to see this is we see companies that are doing really well. Let's say they're doing $20 million a year or $25 million a year. And when you look, though, they haven't won anything in years. And it was because they won a big contract. They went into executing that contract, and they did not do weekly or even monthly or annually strategic growth planning. So they look into the out years. Anyways, long story short, now they're struggling because they're in the last option year and they realize, oh my God, I don't have anything here. And they haven't developed those skills. And so the reason I want you to really thinking about doing weekly activity on SAM, whether you think you need it or not, you do it. It's kind of like exercise. Sometimes we might go, I'm in okay shape. It's like, no. You need to be exercising on a regular basis. Because it needs to be there. Your health needs to be there when you need it, right? And here, the health of your pipeline needs to be there. This is what winning government contractors do, right? They research the market every single week, a little bit. They don't have to spend forever in there. And once you start getting really experienced, your speed on doing research happens much faster. I say this softly, but what you can do in an hour in SAM and researching compared to somebody like me or some of my peers out in the government contracting space could do in 5 minutes, right? I mean, we're so experienced at it. That's where I want to help you get to, is that you're so experienced that what you get done in that 1 hour a week is like your old days of a whole week's worth of activity, but done in an hour. When you think about the growth of your company, it's reliant on your pipeline. If you don't have opportunities in your sales pipeline, then you will not get sales awarded, or you will not win sales, right? Contracts awarded. And that means you're not going to have revenue. That is all just pure fact. And so pipelines are built through consistent market intelligence. They're not built by luck, et cetera, that's out there. And so I really want you to focus on SAM being part of that market intelligence you're doing. SAM fully replaced FPDS, as I mentioned earlier. And so FPDS is where we used to go for expired awarded contracts, looking for contracts and their expiration date and when they were going to be recompeted. So SAM has fully replaced FPDS as that source of all market intelligence, frankly, but certainly all award intelligence, those contracts that were awarded and are going to expire. So the bottom line for this is pipelines are built weekly, right? They're not built reactively when an RFI or an RFP drops. You can get started so much farther ahead of schedule. And I'll talk about that in today's training. But if that's what you feel and that's what you want to hear about in today's training, do me a favor, throw SAM rocks in the chat. FPDS we loved before, but let's throw SAM rocks in the chat as we move forward. Okay, in today's training on here, your 60-minute a week weekly pipeline review or pipeline planning, right? I'm going to break the training up into 3 sections. I'll be doing some slides and some SAM demos. So the first thing is we want to review new opportunities and recent awards, right? Not long-term awards, but recent awards. So we want to do that every week. We want to be monitoring expiring contracts. We can't really, today look at every expiring contract. So you look at a bunch, let's say 6 months out, and then you get into this rhythm of looking maybe a month at a time out further, and I'll talk about that. And then the last thing I want to talk about is if you're looking at opportunities, you also need to look at people, because relationships are vital within government contracting. In fact, in my 7-step process for federal revenue success, step 4 is strategic relationships, meaning build strategic relationships. And those relationships lead to step 5, which is opportunities going into your pipeline. And so you need to build and maintain your lead list. That's what I want to talk about towards the end of today's training. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we have repeatable, predictable results, and this is what I want for you. It's why I come back time after time again. If you haven't already followed me in LinkedIn or on LinkedIn, come over here on LinkedIn and follow me. I put out a ton of content that is designed to be useful in your government contracting journey. I tend to, more often than not, share 2 main pieces of information. One are sales tips, like this LinkedIn Live that I'm doing, and it's over on YouTube as well. But the other is a lot of information that I discover for various reasons related to federal agencies or federal buyers. And when I find that information, I bring it out. An example could be an org chart. I'll find somebody who put out a brand new org chart in 2026. It's very useful to me and to my customers. But when I find information, I share it. When I was a government contractor, I hated it when people just find things like that and keep it to themselves, because they're like, oh, information is power. I'm like, hoarding is mean. Stop it. So anyways, when I see something, I share something. The other thing is, if you haven't subscribed already to the Government Contracting Success newsletter, this is my LinkedIn newsletter. It is the largest government contracting newsletter on LinkedIn. It's the fastest growing. It grows faster than even Department of Defense's own newsletter. And so in there, it grows for the same reason, because I only put valuable content that will help you in your government contracting journey. The last thing is, I do these trainings. If you're newer to me, I do these trainings pretty much every day, weekday at noon Eastern time. And I generally plan next week's activities over the weekend, right? I go, what's going on now that would be relevant? I don't try to plan out a long time in advance, because really so much changes in government contracting. I want to make sure I'm speaking to today's concerns or questions you might have. Okay, let's get started on the first tip of reviewing new opportunities in awards. And I'm going to go through in a second and show you this. But inside of SAM, you can go in SAM and check for new opportunities coming out. These are coming out as RFIs or sources sought notices, and I'll show you that in 1 second. But these are market research notices that are letting us know what's coming down the pike, or letting us know what the government is thinking about releasing as a requirement. Sometimes they put out a sources sought or a request for information, an RFI. Sometimes they put those out so they can have a dialogue with you about what they're thinking on the requirements. Are we thinking the right way? And so, those RFIs and market research, they can be like, hey, in 90 days, we're going to drop an RFP, but they could also be in 9 months or 18 months ahead of time. Sometimes they'll do multiple RFIs. That's totally fine. But the point is, you want to be on a weekly basis tracking these. I often share a post on LinkedIn. One of my favorite ones to share is just a notice that says, there's 900 or there's 1,025 RFIs due in the next 30 days. And what I mean by that post is that when I went into SAM on my regular check, I'm seeing that there's this many, like 1,000 RFIs that are due. The response back to the government is due in 90 days. And so that's really important, because then I'll scroll through and I'll try to find the ones that are relevant to me and those I support. The other thing is obviously RFPs and RFQs. These are, flat out, the government is like, hey, I want to buy this. Can you bid on this? Can you write us a proposal? I don't actually ever think these things are too late. I do think you should start earlier if you can, but if you see an RFP that's in your sweet spot, there's nothing wrong with going for it, as long as it's in your absolute sweet spot. But the other reason I really like tracking RFPs and RFQs, on a weekly basis is even if I miss it, I might decide, you know what, I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to rush into it. But now I see who's buying, right? I can look at that RFP and see who the point of contact is. I can see the program office. I'm like, I can see, I can start thinking about, well, I don't have time to go after this, but I wonder who did. I wonder if I can, like, you know, get on a team or something. By looking at an RFP, even though I might not respond to it, but it's in my area, it helps me learn more about that customer. And if I'm trying to get into a particular customer area, that insight's really helpful. The second thing is when you go in to SAM.gov, you can find the RFI notices, the RFP notices, but you can also find these things called award notices. And these are real-time notices just saying, hey, we awarded a contract, it went to these people, blah, blah, blah. And I'll show you in a second what it is. It's not the full award contract information. That's in a different area, but it is enough information for you to see what's going on a weekly basis, who's winning, especially related to who's winning around what you sell. And the last thing I'm going to try to show you is how to save a search so that when you come in, you can do it faster. Remember, I was saying in the beginning, you might do it, and it might take an hour, but pretty soon it might take 30 minutes, then 15 minutes, and then 5 minutes. It literally can take you can take a task that takes you an hour, and you can get it down to 5 minutes if you just get into efficiency things. So the thing I want you to remember from the slide before I go show you SAM is that new awards and the information you find in SAM, those will eventually become future recompetes. And so sometimes you're 5 years ahead of schedule. That's totally fine. When you're $5 million or less, that seems odd. But when you're pushing $50 million and beyond, you're looking out multi-years. You're like, I lost this contract, but I'm not losing it next time. Literally, I'm looking at a whole bunch of contracts that I personally have participated on 4 years ago, and they're all out for recompete. I'm like, okay, we know what we did. Let's go after them. Okay, so let me share SAM really quick. And where is Sam? Come on, Sam. Okay, so really quick, I'm going to come in here. In this particular demo, I don't need to sign in, so I'm going to do it pretty quickly. I go to SAM, I hit the search tab. I come over here to contracting. I'm going to go fairly fast because we want to watch our time. And then in contracting, the place I want is this pill, contracting opportunities. So now I'm just looking at kind of the current activity. And when I come down, I can set all sorts of searches, but the first place you want to pay attention to is notice type. And in here, this is where you start developing skills. You start exploring what happens when I click sources sought, right? If I click sources sought, I don't know if you can see this up here, but there's 3,737 results, right? And that's pretty cool. By the way, the reason there's that many is because a lot of contracting officers just don't put a good expiration date on their post. These things should be expiring, because watch what happens when I change the date here and I say, show me when the response date is in the next month, right? When I say the next month, think in your head what your guess is. We went from 3,700 to 1,092. Actually, that's a really good sign. It means, because I've been tracking, and lately they've been closer to like 700 and 800. So now we're at 1,000. But we just cut by 2,700 the number of RFIs that are in here, or sources sought notices. So anyways, when you come in, you can start cruising through these things. If you only are targeting a particular agency, which would be a pretty disciplined approach, you can come in here and start typing. Hopefully you're familiar with this part and using SAM, but you can come in and say, like, let's say the Army, right? And I can, didn't I choose Army? There it is. It's a little bit behind. So now I'm sorting on Department of Army RFIs. There was 1,072, I think. And now, so of those 1,000, 200 of them are in the Army. That's a pretty good sign as well. I mean, that's huge, the amount of agencies that are out there. This is the one. So let's say we go into the Army. Here's the last tip I want to give you so I can keep moving pretty fast. You saw that part. Oh, I messed up on one thing. I want to show you how to save this as a search. So I'm going to sign in really quick. So I just click sign in, submit, send me my one-time code. 074144. Man, 074144. Apparently I'm tired. Come on, take me back so I don't have to reload the search. Good. So there's 195. Last thing I wanted to just show you here is that you can come up to actions and say save. And now if I save this and I say Army RFIs, next 30 days kind of thing. And I hit save. If I go back to SAM, right now, imagine coming in every day and you come into search. I can go to my save search results here. And there's multiple ways to do it. I'm just showing you one. And when I click on save search, here's Army RFIs. So I just hit it and it pops up and it shows me the information, right? There's a lot of different ways you can go into SAM. So you want to explore this. Okay, let me go back to searching. And so you want to get in the habit of doing that one. The other one is if I come in here and look at contract opportunities, obviously you can come down again with the notice type. If you come into the notice types, you can see all these other ones that are in there. So I showed you sources sought. These solicitations, basically all of these are related to upcoming opportunities. And then award notice, though, is what I wanted. And the last one, by the way, is sale of surplus property, which I don't deal with. But if I go to award notice, and if I do the same thing, right, there's 11,000 award notices. And by the way, at the moment, the reason that there is because these are what are called active notices. And what contracting officers are supposed to do is put a date when this notice should be deactivated. If you come down to the bottom, you see active and inactive. So they should set an inactive date. And generally, you want that to be about 30 days, but they don't do it a lot of times. So that's why you get a mess. So instead, what I do is I come back now. I want to see award notices. And because I do this on a weekly basis, I might say updated in the past week, right? So now if I come up here, there's 1,000 things that are in there. And I can begin to filter this down, right? You can begin to figure out, let me close this really quick. So past week, award notices. And the last thing is I might sit there and say, show me something related to 541. Actually, I wonder if we'll just do this and see what we got. That's okay. So this is totally manageable. So I'm saying I want to track on anything that's in the NAICS code 541. Like I like 511, 512. But if I'm saying just 541, then I can come in here and see 59 results. And I can come in here really quick and scroll through this. I don't filter much anymore because 59 results, I can look at all 59 in 5 minutes or less. And by doing that, I can come down and start looking at the ones that matter. Like here, data manager. That's an interesting one. Let me open that, I come down. I'm not doing Spanish interpreter, restrooms, representatives, synthesis. See how fast I'm going? I know I'm not talking to you about what I'm reading, but I'm looking. Like here's a new one. New base +4 data support. That's an interesting one. I want to come in here now and look at these award notices and figure out whatever information that's in here. Right? If I come down here, I can start learning stuff that's in there. I've obviously got the POC. I can read this document. I'm not going to open it, but I can learn more and more about this opportunity, all because I set up these patterns of coming in on a regular basis and looking at SAM. So let me move this over, shrink this down a little bit. Okay, I'm going to close these two and go back to the tab really quick. My slides. Let me check my time. Okay, so that's reviewing new opportunities and new awards. New awards are just kind of updates. The next thing we want to be tracking on are expiring opportunities. And so the idea of monitoring expiring contracts is you want to find the opportunities that have already been awarded to a competitor previously, that when you look at it, you're like, I wish I had that contract. So I'm going to wait for the recompete, and I'm going to look for the recompete. Meaning that contract expires, the government 12 to 18 months out is starting their acquisition life cycle. And so they're starting the process to procure those services or products again. Those are expiring contracts, right? These recompetes. And I want to track on these contracts to see, first off, they're approaching dates. That's a really important thing. The completion date, obviously, I want to know that because that date drives all the things that come before it. For example, when the government's going to drop RFI or the RFP, right? I can look out and go, if the completion date's here, they're going to award it, let's say 2 months before or a month before, they're going to have the RFP to be due by this date. The RFI is probably going to be here. I'm guessing those, but then I would go into the contracting officer and try to get those all solidified based on their schedule that they have. What I'm trying to find are opportunities that are out there. So in this particular slide and tip for you. What I want you to think about is think out about opportunities. And let's say right now you're looking at opportunities that are all expiring by the end of fiscal year 2026. And so you're aggressively trying to pursue those. Well, that's great. Now on a weekly basis, what I encourage you to do, starting with October 2026, which is fiscal year 2027, what I encourage you to do is to start every week, look at a new month. So go into the contracts that are expiring October 2026, look at those this week, right? And then next week, look at the opportunities expiring in November 2027. You start working your way forward. And depending on how many contracts are expiring, you might take 2 weeks for a particular month. But you're looking at those opportunities that are due to expire within that month to analyze or to understand them and to find the ones that really are good fits for your company. You're not trying to find all these opportunities or a lot. You're trying to find the one or two that are perfect for your company. So you want to flag these opportunities, get them into your sales pipeline, right? That's the whole idea is you find these contracts that you like, and the minute you find them and you do some very initial review, like inside of SAM, you look at the data, I'll show you in a second, but you look at the data and you go, I like that. Well, then you bring it forward into your sales pipeline because that point forward, you want to do all of your activity within your sales pipeline. That way, if you abandon an opportunity, you know how much time you have spent working on it. That's a really important thing to track. But you also can write down a quick note on why did I abandon it? You know, initially I thought it was a good fit for us. Turns out the requirements were wrong. Initially I thought it was a good fit, but it turns out I found out there's no way the contracting officer is going with anybody else but the incumbent. Things like that, right? But you want to know why you abandoned things that came into your pipeline. That's a really important way to learn and get better at identifying the right opportunities. Okay, so the bottom line here is that when you find the contract timeline on awarded contracts, that tells you when you should be starting capture, and it kind of helps you understand the capture activities you're doing. Let me pop over to SAM really quick and show you what I mean by this. Okay, really quick, I'm going to go back to SAM. I like going back. So I'm at SAM. I'm going to hit the search bar. And these pill buttons, I'm going to hit contracting for the pill button. And right here is one called contracting awards. And I'm going to click on it. So now I'm looking at expired contracts, not the award notices, but expired contracts. Existing contracts or contracts are going to expire. And so I want to move fairly fast in here, but let's just look at the Army again. Let me zoom in a little bit with you. And I'm going to find a product or service code, like I said before, 541. In this case, I'm going to go 511, see if I can find some. Okay, so there's enough here for me to look. Oh, the last thing I want to see is socioeconomic status is small. Well, actually, in this case, let's just say 8A then. Where's 8A? 8A program participant. Okay. So now I'm looking at, look at that, 1,000. So there's a lot, right? I haven't filtered it down more, but I don't have time. I got to end here in a second. But so now I'm looking at all these opportunities. I'm just going to pick the first one because they're all basically the same. Now, on a regular basis, I'm coming in and I'm browsing those awards, or if I'm advanced, then I'm using the reporting tool and the ad hoc report builder tool. If I'm advanced, I do that. And I have previous training on that. But in here, what I'm able to do is to start coming through and see that, like if I drop really quick to the bottom for you, down at the bottom, I'm able to see all these modifications. I'm able to see the amount of money that's being spent on this contract. I can see different things. I can see things like this. It says negative 612. I'm like, what's up with that? Like that's a flag of some sort. So it's a really interesting thing. Did they get caught up in Doge? What was it, right? That's huge, actually, negative 612. So I would want to know about that because that might be a flag for me to not pursue it. But see how I quickly jumped down to do that. Other things that I would be looking at is the competition, right? Well, so this is a vehicle, which is fine. Looked like I jumped into that. I should have did a little bit short. But if I come up here to the, come on, where's this? Here it is, business categories. I can see this company and I can learn a little bit about this. This is an ANC. I can go grab their NAICS code and their UEI, and I can go chase it and figure things out. So this is really important. You can start going through. This is a base contract. Let me show you one last thing I do is if I go to page 2, and I know I'm scrolling really fast, but if I go, come on, if I go to page 2 and I come here to what we call mod 0, it's basically the original contract. And I come down here looking at this contract, and I can see right here that it's a consolidated general fund logistics modernization program. I can start learning a little bit more about this contract. It's a brief description. I would want to know a lot more. But these are the type of things I do. But I jump to the mod 0. Okay, let me come back and get out of here because I only got a couple seconds left of training. Where's my slides? So on this slide, though, remember the bottom line here is we're looking at expiring contracts, and I want you on a weekly basis to be finding more and more expiring contracts that seem like a slam dunk. Don't add as many contracts as you can. You actually want to be really critical or disciplined to make sure you don't add things that aren't your company's slam dunk core competency type opportunity. All right, this last one, I'm going to go really quick. I don't have a lot of time, but inside of this activity you do in SAM, you're able to identify people. You're finding contracting officers or acquisition personnel, get their information into your pipeline, or excuse me, into your CRM, your customer relationship management tool. And that could be a spreadsheet or it could be a fancy tool. It doesn't really matter. It's basically where you write down people's names, track their numbers, emails, et cetera. So you want to identify those people at your target agency. And inside there in particular, you want to be identifying the contracting offices and program folks, not just the people, but the offices that seem to align to what you sell. When you're in SAM and you're seeing opportunities and you're discovering they feel like a really good fit for you, well, you want to make sure you understand what are the program offices and contracting offices, because they might have more work related to that. And those signal to you that you could be doing intro calls, just basic capability briefings, not around a particular opportunity. And the last one is when you're going through and doing this research, you're also learning about your competitive mates, right? These people who sometimes you compete with and sometimes you team with, right? That's why we call them competitive mates. But these companies, you want to be tracking them. And if you see people, you want to track them. If I'm looking into the Army and I'm seeing opportunities that were awarded to small businesses, I'm probably going to write those companies down and go find the business owner over on DSBS and be able to put them into my CRM. By doing that, I'm building building my network around my target Army customer, let's say. So the bottom line I want you to understand from this activity of browsing within the expiring contracts and then building your contact list as well is opportunities. The best opportunities come from relationships. And those relationships come from you identifying people and beginning to reach out. Then you develop a relationship that will lead to opportunities. Here's what I want you to remember from today's training. SAM is a skill set that you must master. It's whatever level you're at, get in there and practice it over and over and over again. I've been in this business 20 plus years. I'm literally dedicating 30 minutes a day to going into SAM and improving my skill sets, how I build reports, how I identify information. If that's what I'm doing as a senior person who theoretically knows SAM, then you want to be doing that same thing. And you could do this through the weekly engagements. And when you do that, you're thinking strategically, not reactively, right? You're proactive. That's strategic thinking is proactive. The last thing I want you to remember is that this stuff I'm talking about that I'm doing and that I'm recommending you do, 90% of your competitors will not do this. They won't put the effort in to learn SAM. Yet SAM is where the larges and the large smalls are getting ahead of the game because they know how to use the tools, they perfect their skill set, and they find the best opportunities their company can pursue. Hopefully you found that valuable. If you did, put SAM Rocks in the chat. If you're interested in a course I'm putting out, I call it the SAM Pipeline System, but it's an in-depth course I'm going to build on SAM. So I teach every little skill set in there. Just go to govconchamber.com/waitlist and join the waitlist. I'll let you know when it's ready. All right, I'll see you in the next training.